All right, how you doing today out there, YouTube land? This is Steve with Vast Motorsports. Today I'm going to be working on my son's 06 Mustang GT with a 4.6, and we was having some issues. Actually, it's been a great car. It's got about 138 on it, unmolested vehicle. My son got lucky finding this one. He bought it and been driving it for probably 6-8 months. I don't know, it's been a while. No issues at all with the way it runs. Well, one morning he comes out to drive to work and the car would hardly even run and making a really bad racket. I didn't know what happened because I really wasn't up to date that much on these 3-valve motors. So anyway, long story short, he parked the car. Luckily he had just bought a truck off his friend, a Dodge truck, so he had something to drive to work. And the car sat for a minute. I went down, got the code reader, got a Genesis to hook up and see what was going on with the codes. I had to look them up, tell you again. I know it had a 22 and the one for the cam sensor and crank sensor correlation being out, and also number 5 misfire, and it had a bad sound on the driver's side front, it sounded like. So I automatically assumed the cam phaser has gone bad, the mechanical phaser on the front of the cam there. And so I wound up tearing into took the valve cover and stuff off to check it. Well, actually what happened was I wound up switching number 5 coil with number 7 and erasing the codes because I wanted to see when I drove it up to the shop if it was going to follow that number 7 cylinder and tell me that the coil was bad. But it actually wouldn't even set the code, and it sounded much better, and it was driving pretty decent till you hit around 2 grand or so and tried to get in it. It just didn't have any power. So I pulled it down to the shop, jumped out, was listening. Didn't have the big bad racket that was going on where it almost sounded like something fell apart inside the motor, but it did have a small tick. I didn't like it. I knew something was going on. So I got my stethoscope out, started listening to the valve cover, and when I got to the actual, let me show you on here. When I got to the actual, the variable timing solenoid, that had the loudest ticking when I had the stethoscope on. You know, I was going around everything checking. So the actual solenoid was clicking real bad. So I went ahead and pulled the valve cover. I wanted to see if any of the rocker arms, if anything was going on. All the cam lobes looked good. I just was doing a visual inspection to see what kind of condition everything was in. Nothing noticeable. The front phaser gear, everything was nice and solid. Nothing looked separated. The little timing mark on it was lined up, so it didn't look like it was out of time or anything. But those solenoids will go bad and throw the timing off. So I checked everything, looked good, took the solenoid itself out, cleaned it with brake clean. The little screens on it, they were not dirty. Everything inside there is actually pretty clean. But I went ahead and the screen, as soon as I sprayed a little brake cleaner on it, the screen fell apart. Even though they were clean, I said, oh man, I don't want to put that back in there because it could circulate, clog up one of the passages. So I just cleaned it with some brake clean, took the other little screen off, popped it back in there, and as you can see, it's running great, sounds great. You wouldn't know anything was wrong now. I drove it up and down the road. She's running good, no codes or anything. So I did order a new solenoid. Right now I was going to do a quick little add the motor flush. I just pulled it up on the ramps, let everything slow down to an idle. It's been sitting here running while I'm doing the video for a few minutes just to make sure she's settled down. I'm going to go ahead and pour this in and let it run in there for 5 minutes, and then I'll go ahead and drain this out. I've got new oil for it. That way we can go ahead and do the oil change. That way my son there went ahead and picked up the good Pennzoil Platinum. This is made out of natural gas. Seen a couple videos. There's Ford Tech on there. He says this is the best oil to run in these. You know, back in the day I used to not worry about the running the real thin stuff like the motor calls for 520. But once I would get up to 140, Well, most of my vehicles have 200 plus on them. Once you get up around that 200,000 range, I like to step the oil up in the thickness. But a lot of these newer motors, I call it newer to me, it's anything that 05 and 06 and up, they have those variable timing solenoids and stuff, and the variable cams. Man, you got to be careful. You can't really put the thick oil in those all the time. So anyway, we're going to run this little flush through it. The motor, like I said, didn't have a lot of buildup or anything in it. It's actually very clean. Thankfully, it's been taken care of. But I just wanted to go ahead and flush it before I go ahead and put this. I ordered 2 of the new solenoids. Everybody knows me. I'm an eBay freak. I love eBay. I understand there is a lot of fakes and junk like that out there, but this one actually has the eBay guarantee showing it. This seller out of Georgia is selling real stuff, and it's showing genuine Ford. The majority content's made in the USA. Hey, a lot of motorcraft stuff is made in China now. They have been for many years, so it's hard to say if you're getting a fake or a real, but I do feel like it's the real deal. Got the new little gasket and all with it. The new solenoid, I got 2 of them because they were actually only 60 bucks for 2 shipped. And I know I'm going to hear slack about that. Oh, they're fakes, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, it is a reputable seller. Had the eBay guarantee. This time, I'm not going to take the valve cover or anything back off since I already had it off and inspected everything. We're just going to unplug, pop this seal out, stick an extension through. I'll show you in the video. And be able to pull this baby right on out, do the swap, put the new seal in, and she'll be good to go. But as you can see, I got lucky just cleaning it, the actual solenoid, and I took a little screwdriver and just tried to check the pintle inside there, the valve that moves, because it is spring loaded to return it. And over time, that spring just starts weakening. If it's any gum or varnish in there, it can keep it from closing all the way. But she is running excellent right now. Wouldn't know anything was wrong, but I'm not going to just let it ride like that because my son could be out driving it somewhere and it'll stick again, so we're not going to take that chance. I'm going to go ahead and get these new solenoids in. All right, I went ahead and changed the oil in her. I let her, of course, she was warmed up to temperature, and that let the oil flow out really fast, and it was thin oil anyway. This 520 and all that junk is so thin. So I let it drain all the way, everything out of the pan, thank goodness. No chunks, no broken debris, none of that kind of stuff. Like I said, the motor looked very clean inside. It's just, you always get a little varnish, you know, on stuff. So I just wanted to run that through the system, let it clean all the passages and stuff out, clean those phasers. And so now I went ahead and filled it with the new oil, backed it down off the ramps. Now I'll be able to top it off, make sure everything's good. The point is she runs nice and clean, sounds good still. So I just want to go ahead and change the phaser anyway. I didn't show the oil change. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If you're going deep enough to try to do this stuff, I'm sure you know how to change your own oil. Took the air hose, blew everything off here because we're going to be popping this seal out. Just unplugged the sensor. Brought a screwdriver and a little pry bar type thing. We're going to see what works best to get under this lip here. And I brought a hammer in case I need it. Try to pop this seal out of here. And let me do that real quick. Alright, she didn't want to pry up from the side. You don't want to be scarring the edge where it actually seals. So I just kind of hit the screwdriver right through the middle of it, pushed it all the way through, pried it like this, and pop. And then we can lift her out of there. Now, as you can see down in there, see if I can show you. Right up in that area, there's a little T27 Torx bit. And I've got mine on my extension here. You might want to take some tape and tape it on the end there, the bit, just because you do not want to drop it inside the engine if it was to fall off your socket, off the extension. I'm using good tools, so chances are mine wouldn't, but at the same time, some people might be using the cheaper equipment or even a little bit that's stuck in the end of a socket or something that could fall out. just a little safety precaution. You might want to do that, because if it falls off in there, you are in trouble. The whole front of the motor would have to come apart to get the socket out of the pan, the bit. So let me go ahead and get this broke loose. All I'm going to do is unscrew it some, and then I can start pulling the sensor out of the hole at the same time and continue screwing while I'm pulling it out. The way it's made, and I already had mine out, I do know that but see, even when it's new, the screw is out of the holder there that's on the solenoid. It's supposed to stay in it. This part that's just a shank, non-threaded, is supposed to stay in there so it doesn't fall out in the engine. But you never know, it could the threads could touch there and grab while you're unscrewing it and back itself out. You just don't want to drop the bolt or anything in there. All right, she's a little tight coming out of that hole, but I did get her out, as you can see. This is the old one, and like I said, it's not extremely dirty. There's a little gum or varnish on it, you know, and that can get inside the little valve in there. It's just a little plunger type valve, and the spring in the end there, if it gets a little clogged or a little just weak, just from being old and worked so many times throughout its life and heat cycles and all, it can just prematurely go bad. So let's get that new one. Alright, so I got my new solenoid. Now I'm going to go ahead and pre-thread the bolt into it all the way to where it gets to that smooth shank area, and it'll be floating in that little holder there. Alright, so I got her in. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop the assembly into the motor here. Make sure I got my bolt lined up. That's her right there. Now I'm carefully going to stick my Torx bit back in there and get her snugged on down. Alright, I got her down in there and stuck the bit in, got it tightened down. I don't know what the torque is on that, but I made sure she is very tight because I don't want it vibrating loose. I gave the bit little shake, wiggles before I try to actually pull it out of the head of the bolt. Sometimes they will try to stick, and it should come out fine. Now it's time to go ahead and get this new seal. I'm going to go ahead and put a little oil around the edge of it there and get her popped into place. Alright, that seal, I pretty much pushed it in by hand almost. I used my fingers, pushed it down in there pretty far. It almost pretty well seated. Then I just took like a bigger 3/8 extension in the hammer, just went around the edge there and made sure I had it all the way seated in. So everything is good there. Plug the sensor back in. Let's fire it up. See if that one's all right before I go putting the passenger side one in. All right, so far so good. Nice and responsive. Sounding good. What do you think, Jasper? What do you think, buddy? I don't hear any ticking. That sounds a heck of a lot better to me. All right. Good job. Good job. Hopefully my eBay Ford parts work. That's a heck of a good thing, because for $60 for 2 shipped to the door, that's pretty good, because even running the AutoZone or Advance or something, you're going to get the No Name or the Dorman or something that are China junk anyway, and they're 60-something bucks a piece. So we're going to give her a try. I believe we're good to go. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Vast Motorsports. Changing out your VVT sensor or solenoid on a 06 Mustang GT. I'm sure it ranges for quite a few years. Be the same thing on the F150s and 250s. If they got the 4.6 and the 5.4, they're very similar. All right, y'all stay tuned for the next video, and have a good day, y'all.
Camera now.
It got her, folks. She's fixed.